right, welcome back to the Rink Masters podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, especially if you like our content. Today, we've got a great interview lined up with Victoria Royals alumni, Griffen Outhouse. It was a really good interview, so I can't wait for you guys to hear it. Then once we're done that, we have our discussion about the New York Rangers, mainly highlighted Alexis Lafreniere and what's going on with Artemi Panarin, how the Rangers have been performing. And then we're going to be talking, the outdoor games. Lake Tahoe had a little bit of a setback, but overall, I think the event turned out pretty lovely. But yeah, I'm joined today by Chris and Noah. How are you guys doing?
Oh, I'm pretty good. How are you, Chris?
Oh, doing well, living the dream.
Living the dream.
Carrying
All
it
right.
over from the locker room, I see.
Hey, always living the dream.
We got to have a little bit of an overlap. But yeah, with that in mind, let's head over to the Griffen Outhouse interview. Awesome. All right. Well, Griffen, welcome to the Rink Masters podcast.
Thanks for having me here.
Oh, thanks for coming on. So when did you first realize that hockey was the sport that you wanted to pursue?
Kind of a funny story. I got in a little bit late, actually. My cousins were hockey players. They were playing out in development and Pee Wee Rep, and I was over at their place one day, and they were pretty bored, so they threw a motorbike helmet on me, gave me a baseball glove, some player shin pads, and a stick, and started shooting pucks on me in the house. And I was like, oh, I kind of like this,
Yeah.
And I hopped into goalie right away. My first year was Adam House. And just from there, I just fell in love with it and wanted to be a goalie.
So yeah, right away you knew that you wanted to be a goalie. There really no other position really interested you, hey?
No, my skating, I would say, just forward skating or whatever wasn't up to par. It still isn't, but in the crease, it's all right.
Right on. So what led you to the Caribou Cougars program?
Well, just being in Williams Lake, obviously, like that's what you want to do. The next step out of Bantam is to play major midget, and I knew I wasn't going to make it my first year, and so I had an opportunity to go with the pursuit of excellence. So I took that, and I played E15s there my first year, and then the next year is when I went into Caribou, and I knew that I was going to have a spot there, so I went there, and it was a great experience.
That's awesome. And so when you chose the Pursuit of Excellence program, how was your time there?
POE, it was great. It was awesome for development. 2 hours of ice a day, so we'd go hour ice clean, another hour of skills, and then an hour of workouts. So definitely developed a lot there, and it was a great experience overall.
That's awesome. So your time there definitely prepared you to step into the major midgets. You played for the Caribou Cougars, as we know. Then you also won a Max Cup. What was that experience like?
Yeah, Max Championship. That's still like one of the best days when I look back that I've had in my life. It was overall great experience. We kind of got lucky getting into the playoffs. There was a big upset. We thought we were done. There was a big upset, and so we squeaked in as the 8th seed, and then knocked off number 1 and 2 teams in the quarters and semis, and then ended up bringing it home after double OT. I think it was against Regina.
So double OT, that there's no better way to really take it home. That's all stakes are on the table. Mentally, how did you push through that and achieve that?
I had a good team in front of me, so like, I can't take too much credit there. I had a good team in front of me, but I don't know. You think about that stuff, even if I'm watching hockey or watching one of my buddies or something, like once it kind of gets down to crunch time, like I get nervous watching.
Right.
And then when you're there, it's just like, whatever, it's just, you're playing hockey. There's not too much of a difference, to be honest.
Just taking it as it comes.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, you definitely really came a long way in the program for that 1 year. You ended up walking on with the Victoria Royals for training camp. How was training camp there? And, got any cool stories from your time as a Royal?
Yeah, well, training camp was good. I wasn't expecting to make the team. But luckily I had a good camp, and so they decided to keep me and then just move forward from there. crazy time in Vic, best time of my life. It was awesome. 4 years of having like great like team management, coaches, staff was great. Teammates were unbelievable. I couldn't have asked for better teammates throughout my 4 years there. And it was a bit of a crazy ride. Like my first year, we finished first overall, like regular season standings. I think we had 50 wins, 106 points, and then we ended up losing in we lost in the second round in OT, game 7. The other team tied it up with 0.2 seconds left.
Ooh, right.
We thought we were getting away with that one, so that's how we lost out there. And next year, we had the longest game in CHL history, went 5 overtime periods against Everett, and then the next 2 seasons we got swept in the second round. So left there feeling like a little bit of a bitter taste in my mouth, but it was a great experience. I could have asked for anything more.
That's awesome. I actually want to touch in on that historic game. I mean, 5 periods of play like that must have been exhausting.
Yeah, the play was getting a little bit slow. When they scored, it was one of their guys who hadn't played much. I don't know if he'd really played in overtime, so he kind of had legs when he came out and came down on a breakaway and scored. And there's just one thing in mind. It's just stop the next puck. Like, don't worry about anything else. Just whatever's coming at you, just do your best with it. And yeah, it was exhausting. I remember after the game, there was media waiting out, and I just remember just laying on the floor. Like, I couldn't get up. I had to like lay down for like 5 minutes. I was just so exhausted. My legs were dead, and everybody kind of felt the same. But, even though it didn't end up as great as we would have liked to, coming out with a win, but we were happy with the guys' effort, and I couldn't have asked for anything more.
Awesome. And so moving on to your next stage in life, have you ever, been able to keep in touch with your teammates from Victoria?
Oh yeah, for sure. I meet up with them in the summer and stuff. Always texting them. So I like to keep close with them and the coaches as well.
Right on. So, given that you were playing for the Victoria Royals within the BC division, you spent a lot of road games in Prince George. Was there a bit of a special feeling coming back here to play, knowing that you're going to see some familiar faces in a city where you once played in?
Yeah, for sure. Getting into PG, it was kind of felt like my hometown crowd. Their friends and family would be there. So it was always great to play in Prince George. And, for the most part, it went well for me there. We did pretty well against PG. So I'm happy with how it turned out during those 4 years once we'd make those road trips down.
I know. I will say, as a Cougars fan, being at those games, it was great to see you doing well. But as a fan, I was hitting my head against my seat the entire time. You've made unreal saves. So now, we talked about this earlier, but you're playing college now. Of course, maybe not at this moment with everything with COVID, but you're at the University of New Brunswick. Just tell us a bit of what you're doing there in terms of pursuing a degree, and what do you hope to do once you graduate?
Yeah, so we've had a great opportunity here, up until recent when, they've announced that CHL teams are going, and then NHL being pretty fresh and AHL games kind of just starting up. Like, we've been going since September. Like, we've been on the ice for the most part 4 to 5 times a week. We've had 3 workouts a week. So, the training has been intense. It's been long, it gets a little bit tiring sometimes, but we got to just know that our goal is to come in for September if we're given the opportunity to play season. So we've had a really good group that's completely bought in, knowing that we're not playing right now. But I'm happy. I'm assuming every other player on the team is happy, and I definitely know that the coaches are happy with the effort that we're putting in right now.
That's awesome. And yeah, so what do you hope to do once you're done at school?
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. I want to get back into pro hockey. I want to play hockey a long time. It's my dream to have a professional career at the highest level possible that I can play at. So for me, I'll just see what contracts come my way, if any, and just if I get that opportunity, just to make the most of it.
Yeah, no, that'd be awesome. Well, thanks for joining me today on the podcast. It was a good interview, and I know we'll be cheering you on as you make that happen.
All right, thanks for having me on.
Yep, cheers. All right, and that was our interview with Griffen Outhouse. Griffen is, he's a salt of the earth guy, and I've heard nothing but good things about him. So being able to actually now talk to him and have a conversation was really good. Very humble, and there's a running theme that I've come to notice with the Outhouse family. We had Paige Outhouse on, a few episodes ago. They're very well-rounded individuals, and you can definitely tell that they're leaders on their teams and in their circles. So a huge shout out to the Outhouse family and parents for raising some two well-rounded individuals. And with that, Chris, take us away with New York Rangers and Alexis Lafreniere.
Yeah, no, I think the New York Rangers have been a big talking point so far to start the season. I know a lot of us, I think including all us three, had the New York Rangers doing a lot better than what they've been doing so far.
Yeah.
There's been now the Panarin, which we'll get into a little bit later. Alexis Lafreniere, who has underperformed, given ice time not being up to where we think he should be, and then obviously the Tony DeAngelo situation, which has been probably a pretty big distraction for them. Having some kind of locker room incidents and stuff like that can really take a toll on your locker room and stuff, and honestly your play on the ice. So I think those are three big things with the Rangers that I think have really made them where they are in the standings right now.
All right, so Chris kind of mentioned it. I'm going to provide some context here for some of those things. So Alexis Lafreniere, through 16 games, he had 2 goals, 0 assists, and so only 2 points. He was also a -7, and his average ice time was only 14:32. So that's pretty low. Capo Caco, he was their second overall pick last year. And then he has 3 points from 14 games, and his time on ice is 14:39, and he is a -2 or 3, I believe. Yes, he is a -2. So those are two of their top young players that they need to be performing, and they just haven't so far. And that's not even getting yet into Mika Zibanejad or any of those guys. So with that, why do you think they've been struggling?
Well, I know me and Chris were talking about this, earlier in the week, but and we've come to the conclusion that, it's the ice time and the players that they're playing with and how they're being utilized. Good players need to be playing with good players. I know if we go way back to one of our first interviews with Bob Simmons, good players want to and need to play with good players, especially, the NHL it's a step up. And when you're a younger player, you need to be playing with players that can really keep up with you. They haven't been getting a lot of power play looks between Kako and Lafreniere. They're not getting utilized in those spots. And when you got guys like Chris Kreider that are not looking so hot, I mean, you've got to wonder why the heck is Kako and Lafreniere not getting those opportunities? I think that's where they need to be.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. We've all seen their skill set. We've seen Kako's skill set. We've seen Lafreniere's skill set from junior, the World Juniors, all that, and they've shown why they were taken, number 1 and number 2 in their draft. So I think you've got to, utilize their skill set, and if you're not doing that, you're just wasting your time. You can't be playing them 3rd, 4th line minutes and be like, all right, you're going to play that 3rd, 4th line role. That's not the players they are. So you can't really put them in that role. They're not gonna succeed. So I think that's really been hurting them. And like you said, good players are gonna play better with better players. So if they're not playing with guys with a skill set, it ain't gonna work, and you're gonna get results is what they're getting right now.
Well, exactly. And I'm thinking back to the World Juniors, right? We saw how lethal Alexis Lafreniere is on those moments on the power play. And, when he was able to be playing a skill game with players that could keep up with that skill, and he was clicking on pretty much every shot and making things happen. Well, you got to think, like, you put him with Panarin, like that's what's going to happen, right? So I really hope that we end up seeing that play out. What do you think, Noah?
Well, I was going to say, I think part of it too, he didn't get to play in the World Juniors this year because the Rangers didn't let him go.
Yeah.
And I don't think that helped him. I really don't. I understand the concern that maybe he could get injured, but I think looking now at how he started the season, it would have been worth the risk, right?
Yeah.
He hasn't played in almost a year when they started the season, right? Like that's just not that's not good for a young player. You're coming into an unusual situation. You're probably not even going to be playing with the line mates that you should be playing with. Like I think there's other things too that have impacted this, right? So do I think the Rangers made the right call not letting him go to the World Juniors? No, I don't.
I think I can get on board with that too, right? Because, if he had that opportunity to like really gain momentum early, he would have killed it at that tournament again. And he would have been coming into a severely shortened training camp with no exhibition, with a full tournament under his belt, and would have been in a position to enter, the NHL season rolling.
Well, that's the thing. That would have been his preseason, right?
Yeah.
And here's the thing. It's on with slightly less talent. So he gets to build up to that, right? That's the thing. So, especially when you're off for a year, you're coming in so young. He's only 19, or is
Yeah.
he still 8? Yeah, he's 19.
He's
So
19.
Yeah.
so like with that though, you when you haven't played in a year, you're going up against the big boys now, right? Like you
Yeah.
need to have that time to get up to speed, and he just didn't have that. So I wonder now how many points he'd actually have now if he had had that time to actually get going, right? Because he had that rest to start the NHL season against better average competition,
Yeah.
right? So
Well, and that's probably exactly why Chicago, let Dak play for Team Canada this year. Obviously, it's really unfortunate that got cut extremely short. But as we saw there, he was looking ready to play early on, and if hypothetically he didn't get hurt, he got to play that full tournament and then headed into Chicago this year, he probably could have been their best player.
well, especially with Taves hurt, right? So
That would have been big.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
and that's just it though, right? Like that's why it just totally surprised me when the Rangers didn't let him go. So do you think that was the coach who wanted him to stay? Like whose decision do you think that was? Because we are obviously talking about his time on ice, right? And that's up to the coach, at least to a large extent, unless the GM and the owner are breathing down his neck.
I would propose that it would be an ownership move.
Yeah.
He is a big prospect, right? Ownership, like he's a guy they're going to want to invest in going forward. Like they've been waiting for a guy like Lafreniere. I would not be surprised if the owner was like, you can't let Lafreniere go.
Yeah. I mean, and the sucky thing about that is, okay, I'm just gonna kind of slam the New York Rangers ownership and their whole organization here. You have a first and a second overall pick in the last 2 seasons, and neither of them have more than 4 points after 14 games. Right? They have a combined what is it? 5 points from 30 games.
Yeah, something like that.
Like, what's the point of protecting your asset, not letting them go to the World Juniors if they're only going to put up 2 points in the first 16 games? Like,
well, I want to let Chris touch on this in a second, but I think we kind of covered it in the fact that if they were getting those opportunities to be playing more in the top 6 and getting that extra 2.5, 3 minutes of ice, I think they would be producing more than they are.
Yeah, no, ice time's big. I believe it was Jonathan Taves who said that the World Juniors was the best thing that ever happened to him. I could be wrong on the player, but I know some Canadian player who's doing extremely well in the NHL right now said that. And we look now at Bowen Byram's playing in Colorado right now. He's looked really
good.
Yeah, he's looked really good. And I wonder why. It's only been a month or so since that tournament finished, and he's already in the NHL, and he's been a good impact for the Avalanche on the blue line. So I think if you compare it to that, and then look at what Laffy's done in the Rangers so far, I think that's a solid comparison of why you probably could send him to the World Juniors. You're not going in expecting that freak injury like Kirby Doc had, right?
Yeah.
So, and I
Or
think
even
that's
Tim
exactly
Stutzel, right? Like he's played well in Ottawa, right? And I mean, right? Like he had the World Juniors, and now he's actually had a good start to the year. So
Yeah, no, exactly. You can definitely look at that because he's had those reps, right? You don't get those reps just practicing on, open sheets of ice against nobody, right? Obviously, those help, but you're not getting that, game time speed and stuff, right? So it definitely helps.
okay,
Yeah.
so we're talking about. I mentioned Mika Zibanejad earlier. I'm going to bring him up again now. Okay, so I'm just looking at his ice time. He has 6 more minutes of average ice time per game than Alexis Lafreniere. Guess how many more points he has?
It's not many.
Not many,
2.
no.
Yeah, it's only 2.
Mika Zibanejad is getting more than 20 minutes a night, more than 20 and a half minutes a night, and he only has 4 points from 16 games. And like, I just don't get it, guys. Like, what's up with that?
Well, I touched in on this a little bit on the locker room, which you guys should see now. It's up on Instagram and YouTube. But I do believe part of it's due to the departure of Lindy Ruff. Lindy Ruff, he's doing wonders right now for New Jersey. Last year, I mean, New York had one of the best offenses in the National Hockey League, and a big part of that's due to the offensive structure that Lindy Ruff had provided. Zibanejad's best season was under Lindy Ruff. And so I think not having Ruff there is really kind of bringing Zibanejad back down to earth. I do see him in the same boat as Sean Monahan in Calgary. I think he's a good second line center. But the moment you try to play him above his role as in that slot of a first line center, I don't think he's going to be able to do it. And yeah, just the offensive woes with the Rangers ultimately comes down to the lack of offensive structure that the coach has been providing.
Here's the other interesting thing about that Zibanejad. Okay, he's only averaging 4 less seconds per night than Panarin, so that means he's playing with Panarin. Panarin's actually over a point a game.
Yep.
And Zibanejad's only at 4 points from 16 games.
Yeah, again, like that just ultimately proves the point that Zibanejad is not a true number one center. Panarin's carrying that line all on his own at this point.
And like Ryan Strome. I get all the Stromes messed up, guys. I'm sorry, but
no, I did too actually a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, but he's their best center right now. He has 9 goals from 16 games. He's averaging 19 minutes a night. So, like, I don't know, guys. Like, I don't think there's a simple solution for the Rangers right now. I think that they're undergoing a lot of internal turmoil as well. With the Tony DeAngelo situation and now Panarin stepping away from the team. And so with that in mind, they're losing their best offensive player. What do they do now?
Let the kids play.
Yeah, you have to let them play. You have to give them the ice time. Because if they're not going to give those two the ice time now, when are they ever going to get it?
Yeah.
Right? Because there is a blatantly open spot now on the wing for Laffy or Kako to take that and run with it. And we all know that they have the skill set to do so. So if they can, strive in that opportunity, I think that could really help their season along with getting that extra ice time and play with some solid players.
Yeah, and Lafreniere, he is a natural left wing. So having Panarin out of the way right now, just we don't know how long. I'm hoping it's not too long because I have Panarin in my fantasy team and I need him to put up some points. But having that opportunity for Lafreniere, I think, is huge. And if I'm Lafreniere, I'm looking at this opportunity and it's like this is my time to prove that I belong in the NHL, and he's gonna hopefully take this opportunity to shut up the haters.
So, Kurt, who's the coach in New York right now?
David Quinn.
Do you think he needs to go?
I think we need to let this season play out. I would give him that chance because they did play good last year. I think you got to give him the chance to turn the ship around this year and then go from there.
Yep.
I wouldn't in a shortened season. I don't think it's wise to have a huge shakeup with your coach. I think you just need to let it play out and see how things go.
So, and actually, guys, that is kind of a intro to topic next week. We'll be discussing coaching so far this season, and how it's going. So that's do you have anything else to say about the Rangers though?
Well, we had said we were going to touch in a bit on
Right.
Artemi Panarin
That's right.
and what's been going on with that. I mean, we know that Panarin has been very outspoken about what's been going on over in Russia and his displeasement with Vladimir Putin. That's just straight out obvious. Chris, I want to let you touch in on it, but let's just say that there's former teammates from Panarin's Russian days that are already saying the allegations are false. So I'll let Chris get more in depth with that.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting news to come out this morning. I wasn't expecting that to be on my Twitter feed to start the morning. But we all know with Putin, if you take a jab against him and you're supporting that other side, he's going to take that shot back at you. And it's an intimidation fact and something that he's gotten the media to say, hey, go after this guy. I don't like him because he's not supporting me. So I think that it's hard to say like he shouldn't do that. He's got to focus on himself. But at the same time, you don't necessarily want to stand up for that kind of stuff. So, and you mentioned his teammates in Russia who were with him that night that they are allegedly saying this happened. They say it never even happened. Right. So, and you got to think you would believe them over Putin, who obviously would have some, biasy because of what he's doing, supporting politically. So, honestly, all the best to Panarin. Hopefully he, if he has family members over in Russia and stuff, he can get that sorted out, because you don't want anything bad to happen to them, because that would just be, awful, right? Because, obviously it's the person over the hockey player when you look at stuff like this.
Absolutely. No, and I agree. I think I agree with this situation to take some time away from the NHL. Take some time away from the team. I think he needs that. There's other bigger priorities right now, like Chris said. So hopefully everything gets sorted out for him. And you know what? Add more weird fuel to the fire. Apparently his old coach, something said that there was a massive payout to try to keep the story quiet or something. I saw another report about that, and then somebody, I remember the first comment on it was, sounds like extortion to me.
Yeah. Well, and it's really funny too, because his old coach is also a pretty outspoken supporter of Putin as well, right? So
yeah,
it's really obvious to me that they're just trying to intimidate Panarin, right? Like I mean, obviously you don't quite know these guys personally, like we don't, but Panarin's a guy that I've followed since coming to Chicago, and he does not appear to be the type of guy that would go and beat up a woman. Like, he just doesn't give that vibe. I have a real hard time believing that there's any truth to this.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So, kind of moving on. Obviously you can chime in quickly if you have anything else to say about that situation. But Lake Tahoe, that was a really cool experience. Obviously the first game didn't go off quite as we had hoped or expected, but it was still pretty freaking cool. So, kind of with that in the books, looking at the different outdoor series that the NHL has had over the years. So they've had the Heritage Classic. I think just what the Outdoor Classic or whatever. Can't remember the exact term they use for it. And they have the Stadium Series.
Yeah.
And now NHL Outdoors. Which has actually been your favorite of those outdoor games? Like of those series?
Well, Heritage Classic for me.
Yeah. The Heritage Classic is pretty awesome. Although, I mean, it's early. We've only had one, NHL Outdoors game at Lake Tahoe. I thought it was spectacular.
Yeah.
I would love to see this be a reoccurring thing, because there are some pretty good spots where you can do this, right? Like, Lake Louise would be spectacular. You could really have some fun with this and really showcase, some very big tourist spots across North America, which would be awesome.
Yeah,
so the money you could bring in too.
Yeah. Well, and production value, it's really good, because that skyline and backdrop for Lake Tahoe was just amazing, right? Like visually, it was beautiful to watch. They will need to tweak their refrigeration pipe system and how they freeze the ice a little bit more. They can do it in Dallas, of course. They can do it at Lake Tahoe. They need to figure that out a little bit more. But once you get that down packed, you're golden. So I can't wait for that.
Yeah, so I was going to say, moving forward, if they were to ditch any of those three main things, which would you want them to ditch, or which two would you want them to focus the most on?
Get rid of the stadium series. As for me, I don't think it's been all what it's been lived up to. I know they've had a couple. I think was it Dodger Stadium? I think they had a game at, and they're having games in like California and stuff. And it to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And I don't think those games have been very good. And I know I think it was the Kings and Ducks, was it? And I think that game was it was a shit show with the ice surface and stuff. So I would probably say stadium series for me to get rid of, and the other ones, obviously the ones they have on New Year's Day, those are always good. The Heritage Classics are always good, and then if they do this outdoor games like they did this year in different parts of North America, I think that could be really good for the game and really grow it.
Yeah, and I see the stadium series as honestly just it was a technique and a tool to try and grow the game there in those non-traditional markets, and then partly almost kind of feel like a cash grab because they kind of overdid it, right? They had way too many of them, and to me that kind of ruins the integrity of the outdoor game as just an idea, you know.
Well, and I think part of it too with the stadium series, it felt like you said, it kind of felt like a cash grab, and part of that to me, it was in non-traditional markets. Generally, from my, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't the majority of the stadium series games in less winterized climates?
Yeah.
Right? In established stadiums for other sports, like not necessarily always stadiums that would even work for it. Was the game between the Avalanche and who was it last year? At the Army Stadium.
Was it Colorado and Philadelphia? I can't remember what it was, but
it was Colorado versus somebody, but I'm pretty sure that was a stadium series game.
It might have been. It was because I was thinking about that, and that apparently that was dreadful. Like leaving the parking lot, the way the facility was just mapped out was horrid.
Well, and just the stadium was not a good stadium for it. The lower bowl seats at the lowest point seating, and somebody sent the picture in, and it trended on social media for a bit.
Yeah,
they could literally only see the top half of the players, like not even like it was even less than that.
Would have been brutal.
And they paid top dollar for those seats.
Well, and I heard a story too that apparently leaving that game was so bad with the parking and the way everything was structured. I heard, I mean, just from listening to Spit and Shitless, that a lady kind of got trampled on the way out. I don't know how true that is, but that's not a good look for the league if that is true.
Which is why, like, so moving forward, I think keep the Heritage Classic absolutely. I think that's cool, those ones. And I think really try to sell the NHL Outdoors. Don't do more than a few of those per year. But those are the games those are like the classic pond hockey looks, right? Like those are cool. Like those go back to almost lots of to some people's childhood or even just their experience in hockey, like going out on the pond, like they love it, right? So I think that's cool. And obviously you can't necessarily have as many fans, but if they can find a location where you can fit in fans without kind of ruining the aura of the location, you can have some really cool games.
Yeah.
Right?
Honestly, when it comes to the outdoor game, I would only have one a year. Like NHL Outdoors, I would really only have one a year. Don't overdo it and make a real highlighted event, around it. I think that's how you got to go.
My other idea was do one in Canada, one in the US.
I mean, maybe, but if you do one a year, then one's not going to potentially be taken away from the other, and all the attention will just get drawn to that one event. and then just every year it's going to just rotate. That's how I do it personally. Because that way you're showcasing one place, not two, right?
Okay. So I'm not sure if you guys have even thought about this, so you don't have to do it. But I was thinking, how about top 3 locations for an NHL Outdoors game?
I was thinking about one. I can't remember the name of the lake. There's a pretty nice lake near Whistler in BC. It would be absolutely insane to have, once the Seattle Kraken are in the league, have Seattle Kraken versus the Vancouver Canucks on an outdoor game. I think that would be pretty sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that would be sweet. Tyler, you already brought up, the Lake Louise. I think in that Alberta area, there is so many, kind of iconic areas that you could have, the Battle of Alberta would be absolutely awesome. Another point on the outdoor games is I think I like what they did with, the doubleheader, having the one game Saturday and one game Sunday, because you're still showing off that only one location, but you're getting 4 teams involved too.
Yeah.
So I really like that. And as long as they can figure stuff out, I think that'd be really good. But yeah, no, I like that that Lake Louise kind of area for sure.
Well, actually, just on your point there, Chris, it makes it more financially feasible for the NHL because you're not only setting up the rink for one game,
Yeah, exactly.
right? It's for 2 games, and that helps. I had an idea for one. Lake Ontario, right by Toronto, with that skyline with the CN Tower in the background.
That'd be nice.
That would be amazing.
Well,
Also,
then you can have that Battle of Ontario.
oh yeah, that would be sick. Another idea that I had was, I'm not sure exactly where, if they could host one in Quebec City with the Chateau Frontenac in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's actually a lake. It's in the Rockies. It has the longest ice skating track in the world or something. It's like a Guinness World Record.
Mm-hmm.
And they have different rinks along the route that you can do, and it's groomed super nice. And I saw some pictures. They could host a game there probably too. So there's so many good locations to host those games. And I think it just also it reps that area.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It just is so beautiful, and it's for that area. It's technically free advertising. So
well, and here's what I'm going to say about that: if you're going to hold an outdoor game in Quebec City, you need to have Colorado back there with their Nordiques jersey.
100%, 100%.
Yeah. Another
Colorado
place...
versus the Canadians.
That'd be so
and
funny.
Then Colorado in the Nordiques jerseys
with the Colorado colors like they have this year, just to rub it in, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Another idea I had was potentially Central Park in New York.
Yes,
I'd be cool with that. Yeah, it'll get cold enough. It'll be good for that. So I would 100% like that. I think that's one of the, if not the most iconic spot in North America.
Yeah.
With all the events and stuff that go on there. So I think, what would you have? The Rangers and Islanders play there?
Absolutely, Rangers and Islanders, man. That would be so sick. And even
that would be a better arena for the Islanders than either of their current arenas. So hey, I think they'd be all for it.
Yeah. Well, and then you could also somehow incorporate New Jersey and Philadelphia into that as well, and I think you could make a real event out of that.
Oh,
all right. So I have one last topic. So it's still on outdoor games. Okay. And I saw this. So the Prince George Cougars, because of the outdoor game in Lake Tahoe, they put out a thing on their Facebook. And I'm not sure if it was on Twitter as well, Tyler. You can just let me know. But asking, where would you want us to play an outdoor game? And I think this is actually interesting because I think it's an idea that the CHL should definitely explore, because there's so many good locations. Obviously we're just talking about some where they could play games. So kind of focusing more on the WHL in BC. Obviously, Chris, you're from Kamloops, right? So where would you want a Cougars versus Kamloops Blazers game, outdoor game, to be held? Do you have any ideas?
There's a lot of them. I know we have It's called Riverside Park. It's actually right behind the Sandman Center. It'd be a super cool area. It's like a big park and river and stuff. So that'd be super sweet. We also have a bunch of lakes out, like just out on the highway while you're heading out of town. That could be super cool as well. I do think Prince George, though, if they are going to hold it, should be the one to, I think host it. I think it's a fail safe because it's obviously up north and stuff, and I think it'd be just super cool for the city of Prince George, so they could really cherish that.
Yeah, I mean, I said on the Cougars Twitter, but I think Purden Lake would be an unreal spot to do an outdoor game.
Yeah. So I had a few ideas. I had a few that were more in the city. So obviously you could do more of the classic stadium. So you could play at Massage, which would be kind of cool. Given that there's like you're right at the border of the downtown and like the Lakewood area and or sorry, like up on the other side of the highway. Like you're right at a cool crossroads in the city there. So that would be a pretty location. Up at the university, I think there's one spot that they can host it up there that you could get some pretty crazy views. It's right beside the bus loop.
Yeah.
I haven't double checked the topography yet, but if there is space for a rink up there, because there is a hill going up towards the residences, you could actually still have some fans there. And it would be so beautiful. Like you could get so many shots overlooking the city, and you get to rep one of the most beautiful locations in Prince George. Just show off. Like honestly, UMBC is a world-class university, so you get to show off a lot with that game, right? And I think that could also be a really cool location.
Now, I almost would like to see something up at Forest for the World. The only way you could do it is if you were to put it right on the lake. You'd have to pick the coldest month of the year to pull it off. But that lake freezes extremely well, given the fact that it is a smaller man-made lake. No in and out. It freezes really well. That is one place where I think it would be phenomenal. And also a nice little spot. My grandpa actually went out there and has created skating surfaces in the past. And it's really nice, and that'd be Tabor Lake. It's not too far out of town.
Yeah. I was going to say the one thing about Forest for the World is it would be a bit hard to get the infrastructure out there.
Well, yeah, it would be.
Especially in the winter.
It wouldn't be impossible to do, though. There's
No.
ways to pull it off. But if you find a crew willing to do it, it would be absolutely breathtaking.
The other idea that I saw floating around was the ice oval. You clear out the middle and host the game right there. So obviously there's lots of cool locations. And I think that would be really cool. Like I think the WHL should definitely look at it, especially if they're looking at like depending on how the season goes, right? They've increased the capacity of their streaming service. They've made it better. So it now maybe is a viable option for them to consider, right? And I don't know.
I mean,
do you think that they should do it? Do you think it's something that they should do?
I think the only question they're going to have to ask is, can we financially be able to pull it off? The Western Hockey League doesn't rake in the same type of money that the NHL does. Like the NHL has so much money at their disposal to make stuff like this happen. And if the league were to want to do that, I think they would also require the owners to pitch in some money to pull it off as well. And the way that the income works in the Western Hockey League, I don't know if any organization would really be in a position to do that, unless you've got like the Calgary Hitmen and the Edmonton Oil Kings, because they've got parent teams. But that would be, I think, the only way.
Well, that's the thing is Regina did an outdoor game with, I think it was Calgary.
Yeah.
When they did that Heritage Classic between the Flames and Jets at Mosaic Stadium where the Rough Riders play. So, I mean, they could honestly join events too with the NHL, right? I know that one didn't get as much popularity, but I think they could still pull that off too. That's an option as well.
Absolutely.
Hypothetically, what if the CHL made that more of a series? Like in partnership with the NHL. So hypothetically, if you were to host 3 outdoor games in Canada that year with the NHL, you'd strategically place them to also show off other locations that could also then benefit those minor teams that would actually be playing there, right? So if that makes sense. So if you were to host a game at like Lake Louise, for example, right, then you could also have the Cougars taking on the Oil Kings.
Well, I think it'd be more like the Hitmen taking on the Oil Kings, or like
Well, I
Red
mean, you
Deer
could do that
Rebels,
too. It's about
'cause it's in
about
Alberta,
the
but-
drive time though is about the same actually. I
But
think.
that's not the point I was making. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it would be an idea. I think I do like the idea you've got there, because in that instance, I mean, the NHL is using their platform to also help grow, you know, and publicize the CHL, which could be a beneficial thing for the organizations in the league.
And the other thing we were talking about money, you could also potentially write into that the WHL or CHL games would piggyback on the NHL broadcasting.
Yeah.
Right. So those streaming companies would also have to do it for the WHL or the CHL, whatever. Anyways, yeah. So that wraps up our conversation today. So Tyler, why don't you take us out?
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today, everyone, and I hope you guys enjoyed our discussion. Drop in the comments below what your thoughts are on the outdoor games. Where would you like to see them happen? What are your thoughts on sticking with the outdoor game model? And we want to know what you think about Lafreniere, Kako, and the Rangers. So yeah, definitely feel free to comment below, and we'll see you next week.